certain military contractors, predominantly Lockheed Martin back in the day, were given these craft to reverse engineer them because obviously the American well, something above the American government, but there's a group of people who wanted that technology in American hands, or we wanted to have that capability of anti-gravity ships that are not basically affected by Earth's gravitational pull, so that they can literally warp space and time and travel to the moon in moments, as well as to other planets. So my research tells me that Lockheed Martin reverse engineered enough of an alien aircraft, or I should say flying saucer anti-gravity ship, to at least engineer a ship that we use called the TR-3B, which is an anti-gravity ship. It has a nuclear reactor on board.
To a Broaderlands podcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. MD, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you on.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Boo Boo. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on. I haven't really been talking about this topic lately, and I've always been fascinated with this topic. And are there aliens? Is there other life forms? What are these UFOs? Ever since I was a little kid, I remember, and I share this all the time. I would watch Star Wars and Star Trek and like, that seems familiar. Not with my mind, but right here is like this inner knowing, like that reality exists. Like I've been there or something like that before.
Right. Yeah, I've had that feeling too, even before I got into heavy research on the topic. I just always thought, God, something feels true about this alien presence.
Not too long ago, I seen a craft, and I was driving home from Scottsdale, and I'm in Goodyear, Estrella Mountain. I'm in the mountains, so I see stuff sometimes. And I'm not far from Luke Air Force Base, and I see this triangle black craft, and it's like hovering right when I live in Estrella Mountain, so you have to start driving up the mountain, right? And there's little mountains all around it. Well, as soon as I started driving up, I seen this craft, and it's hovering, and it's about the same height as the small mountain once you start driving up the hill. And it's just hovering right there, and it's quiet. And I'm really tired. It's late at night. And But I remember seeing these 3 red lights, and how I connected all this is I was talking to Lily Nova not too long ago, and in her book she talks about the TR-3Bs or the TR-3Cs. I'd love for you to share the difference and what are they, because automatically in my intuition, I felt like it wasn't alien. It was our stuff. I didn't know if it was a drone or was it our craft that we have, our technology. But I seen it, and it was weird because it had 3 red lights, and I remember thinking, how are those red lights not matching on the floor? But I seen this white, really like a kind of like a Lexus kind of headlight, but something far greater, like more like quiet, like sheen, lighting up the whole bottom of it. But it wasn't a huge craft. It was like 15 feet by whatever, but it wasn't big. I remember it wasn't huge. What are those?
Are you in an area? So you're near Luke Air Force Base, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not too far.
So the TR-3B is kind of our workhorse, and I think what you saw was something a little smaller, which means most likely you might have seen a new test. It could be a TR-3C, but I think the TR-3B generally, you would be seeing a craft that would be 50 to 100 feet visually from one point to another. But that's kind of our workhorse from, say, McCord Daily to the Lunar Operations Command. So that's a craft that was... So Lockheed Martin, back in the Roswell era, was basically given, secret above-board contracts that the government is not aware about, called unacknowledged special access programs. So they're programs that the regular government doesn't get to see. That those would be special access programs like the B-1B and stuff that you're aware of. But unacknowledged special access programs has to do with reverse engineering alien traded technologies. And because we had basically some crash landings at Roswell and we recovered craft, certain military contractors, predominantly Lockheed Martin back in the day, were given these craft to reverse engineer them because obviously the American well, something above the American government, but there's a group of people who wanted that technology in American hands, or we wanted to have that capability of anti-gravity ships that are not basically affected by Earth's gravitational pull, so that they can literally warp space and time and travel to the moon in moments, as well as to other planets. So my research tells me that Lockheed Martin reverse engineered enough of an alien aircraft, or I should say flying saucer anti-gravity ship, to at least engineer a ship that we use called the TR-3B, which is an anti-gravity ship. It has a nuclear reactor on board. It allows the craft to create a gravity bubble around the ship. So for you and I, if we fly in an airplane, we're heavy into gravity. So the aircraft has to have wings that go out to create lift and blah, blah, blah. But when you're talking about anti-gravity ships that have a nuclear reactor on board, a gravity bubble is created around the ship. It
Huh.
no longer there's no longer aerodynamics. The ship could look like a sledgehammer or a pirate ship or a flying saucer, or it could look like a building, and that ship, no matter what it looks like, is going to have the same incredible capabilities of warping space-time. It can travel to and from other planets in moments. And so the TR-3B is our first workhorse my research tells me we've been using it now for almost 20 years with daily flights from like McChord, Station D, which is Area 51. So getting back to what you saw, the answer is I don't know. You saw a triangular craft. If your gut feeling was that it was our engineering, I would say you're probably right. A Draco craft, which are also the Draco reptilians, the malevolent faction of a race that is in cahoots with what I call the cabal. So this small group of individuals who kind of control the planet, so to speak. They're in cahoots with this group, and they would want that reptilian technology, but a reptilian ship would be much, much bigger, and it would uh, it would take your breath away. Whereas the smaller one, you saw 15 or 20 feet across, I'm guessing you're probably right that that's probably a test ship, maybe out of Luke, or it could be even out of Kirtland, or I mean, all around you where you are in those mountains, there's so much testing that goes on because most people don't live there, right? It's not a heavily populated area, so it's a
Yeah.
perfect place for them to test stuff. And then, of course, if Boo Boo sees it, well, he didn't see anything, right? Or he was crazy, or that was just it was just a drone, whatever. They can say whatever they want to debunk you, and then it's like everybody's like, yeah, right, okay, whatever. But it's cool that you had a sighting. And then what happened when you saw it and you watched it for a minute, and then what did it do? What did it do after that?
It just stood there. It was just just there. It was just like floating, and it
Was it
wasn't like
rotating slightly,
no, well,
like
I was
pointing
driving at the
toward
same
you? Or,
time, so it was
right.
really
Okay.
hard to
Gotcha.
get all the details,
Gotcha.
but
Right.
something told me I'm gonna see it again because I was super tired. Like, I
Oh, that's
was,
awesome.
like, this close from stopping, but I would have to drive in, like, get off the road and to try to take pictures or film it, but, I was, like, super like, I was dozing off already, and,
Yeah.
so something but
Yeah.
I had this feeling that I'm gonna see it again, which was kinda weird, but,
I
so
love that
I just
premonition stuff. Stick with it, man. That's the real
yeah,
deal. That's your heart going, "Oh, yeah, I know this. I know this. It's coming again." So
yeah.
that's really cool. That's cool.
I did take some footage, a picture of up the mountain. And it seems like sometimes they're a lot I don't know if they're checking out the Phoenix airport or what, but that's a perfect spot, but or they're just testing stuff up there because, up here, actually right right in around the corner, but,
Mhm.
I, I seen a craft, and this is what and I shared this before, but, what really amazed me about this was, it was a huge craft, and it was cloaked, like, in the clouds, so it looked like a
Wow.
cloud,
Mhm.
but that wasn't really surprising that didn't surprise me more than what really surprised me was how no one else stopped. Like, I was the only one that stopped and looked at this big old,
Isn't that
looking
trippy?
cloud. Yeah, and everyone
People
else
can
was
just
trying.
drive by sometimes my experience from hearing all the different encounters of just people across the nation and across the world that because I'm in this world now, right? I listen to these stories. Is that I'm convinced now that it may be the frequency that you're putting out that you will have an encounter where other people are around you and other people just don't. They're not allowed to see it. I know certain individuals, like there's a guy right now who does interviews online named JP. He's selected to go on these missions, like to the Arks and things like that. He was a former military guy.
Hmm,
And he basically, over time, you kind of realize, like, oh, he's selected by the Army to go on these crazy alien type missions because of who he is. It's almost like the aliens and like he can go onto an ark with 20 other soldiers, and he's the only individual allowed to proceed to certain areas of the ark. Like the ark inside the ship, inside the ark, will only allow him to go into certain rooms. It's like the ark is alive, and and it senses who he is and what his past is, and it's just it's technology that we can't understand, but what we do know is that's the reason the military selected him out of all the soldiers they could have picked to do these missions. And he said, sometimes I'm on a mission and it will be Indian dudes that are with us. He's like, these are like old school Indians, like they're hardcore Mayans, he'll say.
wow.
And they're allowed to go into the places in the ship that I'm not allowed to go into. So I'll be with it. He's like, I'll be with a group. I'm the only one that's allowed to go into the next room, and the Indians go with me. But then they can even go further, and I hit like a force field. And
Wow.
I just think, there you go, like that premonition that you have, you know, don't underestimate. You maybe for some reason have frequencies that you're going to see things that other people just can't see. And it wasn't that they didn't see it, or it wasn't that they didn't stop because they saw it. It may be that they didn't stop because they can't see it. Does that
Hmm,
make sense? But
yeah.
you can. So I don't judge any of it from the standpoint of, oh, you were the only wild one who stopped and you were the only interested one. I look at it more now with all the research that I do, like, God, it could be anything. It could be if it's a US technology, uh, or if it's uh, a cabal technology, what kind of a small group that I consider above all governments that kind of run the planet, so to speak. But um, nevertheless, at the end of the day, your gut feeling, stick with that because
Mm,
stuff may happen for you, and keep talking about it. Because it's these shows that make people go, God, I had that same experience that Boo Boo had, and then people can relate to it, whereas other people are like, I don't get that at all. But that's just something that we're as humanity, we're slowly learning about all of these alien races. That there's just so much technology that they have capabilities with their ships and with their beings that are extraordinary, and we don't really understand it yet. But that doesn't mean it isn't real for you. You know what I mean?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just at not too long ago, I was at, it was in New Mexico at Linda Moulton Howe's house, because we
Uh
were
huh.
filming a documentary for,
She's
it's called,
amazing. Yeah.
and I showed her the picture, and yeah, she says there's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt
Yeah.
in her mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
interesting. Could we share a little bit about your background before we talk about
Sure.
your book, if you don't
Sure.
mind?
You want just a quick Reader's Digest version of kind of how I got here?
Well, I love how you kind of, you started to see stuff, like, with the media and all that when you were in the military, so I'd love for you to touch on all that if you don't mind.
Sure. Sure. So I came out of the University of Arkansas with a history degree and went right into flight training for the Marines, which means I basically went through Navy flight training. So all Marine pilots go to Pensacola, Florida, and we go through all of the essential early flying tests to figure out how they're going to separate you. So I'm at Pensacola. I'm then selected for jet training. I then go to Beeville, Texas, and I start flying what's called a T2 Buckeye. It's an uh, intermediate jet trainer, and then right after that, so the T2 Buckeye, I'm learning to land on aircraft carriers because all Marine pilots that are jet pilots have to go through carrier training with it to land on Navy ships, right?
Mm.
And so then I'm flying the A4 Skyhawk, which is the same bird that the Blue Angels flew before they began flying the F-18s. So if you remember the jet before the Blue Angels that the Blue Angels were flying, that's the A4 Skyhawk. So I finished advanced jet training, and then I was selected to go to what's called my gun squadron. After I went through what's called a RAG. That just means a training. It's a replacement air group, but basically I went to Whidbey Island to learn to fly the A6 Intruder, which is an attack jet, an all-weather attack jet. I was then sent to my gun squadron in Cherry Point, North Carolina in 1990. We deployed immediately overseas to the Philippines. I flew all kinds of what you could call practice missions for war, because that's what squadrons do. They're always just practicing for an inevitable conflict. And then just literally just a few months after we got there, Desert Storm begins. So we are the last squadron to arrive in on the island of Bahrain, on the southern tip of Bahrain. At the time was a top secret airfield called Sheikh Isa. It was an expeditionary airfield, and all the NATO jets were there, mainly fighters and attack jets. Our squadron, I think we arrived on, we arrived January 5th or something, and the war started January 11th. Like, we barely got there, and they're like, you're going to take your stuff over the fence tomorrow, and you're not bringing them back, meaning
Mm.
bombs and rockets and stuff, right? So it was like, whoa, this is real. So at that time, I'm not only flying combat missions in Desert Storm. Every night of the war, it was a 43-day air war. For a lot of people who don't remember Desert Storm that well, we never went in with ground troops. We had ground troops everywhere around Iraq, but we never actually entered the country. It was just literally 2,000 sorties a day. So think 2,000 flights over Iraq, bombing and attacking every 24 hours. So
Wow.
it was just an onslaught. Like there was no way they were going to have any chance against such a massive. I mean, this was NATO and everybody else was participating. It wasn't just America, right? So I'm flying combat missions. At the same time, I'm the intelligence officer for my squadron. So I'm reading top secret briefs that are coming through to our secure room, and I'm reading not only stuff for our squadron, which, sometimes the top secret briefs would be related to our squadron, and that's my job, is to kind of check for those. But I'm also reading all the traffic that's just coming through, like almost like on a teletype worldwide for top secret stuff that's going on. So I'm flying missions, I'm reading the top secret briefs, and then I'm going to the mess hall each night and I'm watching CNN. Back then, 1991, there was a huge CNN big screen right in our officers' mess hall, right? And we're all sitting at cafeteria style tables watching CNN. So I had kind of three antenna happening all at the same time. I had one of the missions I'm flying. I know what I'm bombing. I know what I'm attacking. I know what I'm being told is today's mission, to attack an oil field area, and then it turns out that it had ammunition with it and the whole thing blows up. It's like crazy stuff that went on. But then I'm reading the top secret briefs and they're not making any sense to me, because what I'm reading has no correspondence to what I'm doing on my missions. And then I'm watching CNN and they're all about, this whole war is about Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons and we got to find those. So nothing was making sense. I was just
Wow.
lost. I mean, I felt like it was my first sense of the military's not directing this. The U.S. government is not directing this. The media is not covering what I'm doing. So it was just, I just remember being perplexed and
Mhm.
going, okay, well, I'm just going to keep rolling because I had a job to do as a pilot. I had to fly every day, right? And I'm just reading the top secret briefs, and I'm watching CNN. And I'm just like, and after 43 days of it, I'm like, I don't know what that was all about, but that had nothing to do with anything. I mean,
Wow.
there was no nuclear weapons, clearly. There was nothing in the top secret traffic about, hey, this building north of Baghdad may have the nuclear weapons. Like, nothing in the traffic, the top secret traffic, was saying he's got nukes.
Right.
Nothing. There was not even discussions of it. Like, and then CNN is all about, oh, he's got to have nukes, and that's what the Americans are there, and we got to find those things. And by God, if he has nukes, he could do anything. And then I'm flying missions that there's, our mission briefs have nothing to do with there could be nukes there. So it was just very confusing, and I just remember that's what kicked off me having a sense of there is somebody pulling strings from a much more oblique level here. There are people who are controlling events here, and it's not my government, it's not my military, there's just I don't know, I just had a sense of something strange. So fast
Right.
forward, I get out of the military after 8 years. I fly one tour for a pilot. If you're a Marine pilot, was 8 years at the time because they've spent so much money to train you. You don't get out in 3 years. You have to do an 8-year tour. When I got out, I went into screenwriting down in LA, and I basically did that as a living, writing for production companies. And then I eventually produced a couple of movies. One was on Netflix called Southern Justice and on Showtime. And then I have a current sci-fi pilot on Amazon Prime called The Gunrunner Billy Kane. You can watch that now. It's kind of a fun 1-hour pilot, and we're just kind of uh, entertaining production companies picking it up as a series. It's kind of a fun show, sci-fi fun stuff. But that screenwriting and storytelling is what I consider myself to be. I really enjoy story. I've always loved history. And then it kind of led to me all of the war stuff, and then coming forward and writing screenplays and writing stories. I thought, I'm starting to years ago I started to study the alien question, and I started reading all these accounts of all these different people like you having an encounter. I started blending them all together, going, what are all these things telling me? What is the general vibe that occurs on encounters for different people?
Right.
Abductions, folks who are in the secret space programs, who just so many alien events, Roswell. So I just went into heavy, heavy research and thought something was brewing inside of me. I knew a story was coming.
Wow.
At about that time in 2014, the Malaysian jet disappeared. And
Right.
about a month later, they released the cockpit voice recordings. And I had a sense at that time that something was wrong because I knew it was an Asian voice on all of the ground control frequencies, on all of the ATC calls prior to launch. And then right after launch, I'm a combat decorated pilot. I can hear radio calls. I can hear if it's a French voice or, Indian or Albanian, I can just hear accents because everybody has to speak English. English is the aviation language. You have to speak English at all airports worldwide. That's all you can use. But you always know if it's a German dude who's flying an aircraft or if it's a Southern dude, like, well, hey, okay, ATC, great. Thank you so much. We'll shift frequencies here. You just kind of know, right? You just very quickly get a sense of, okay, that dude is Asian, just the way he speaks. So I'm listening to all the calls on ground frequency, and it's Fareed Hamid, who's the co-pilot of MH370, making all the calls for the flight. Hey, we want to push back and taxi to the runway, and they're talking to him, and it's hardcore Asian accented English. Sorry, a helicopter is flying over.
Oh, no problem.
Um, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's real
Yeah.
loud in here. Anyway, they're monitoring me.
Yeah.
They're looking for me. Um, so So then the jet takes off, and the recordings are still there today. You can listen to them, but they're also in hush. You can listen to if you get the audible version of hush, you're going to hear the actual radio recordings.
Wow.
Or the radio cockpit calls. And right after liftoff, it's clearly an American pilot now. It's no longer Asian. And I knew in 2014, like, okay, some kind of clandestine work has occurred here because that jet has been taken. There's the Asian pilots are heard no more, right? Farik Hamid, the co-pilot who was doing the calls, which is kind of standard. If there's a main pilot, which was Shaw, if I say his name right, was the main pilot and the veteran, and the co-pilot, who's the new kid on the block, so to speak, is doing all the radio calls. That's very standard. And so he was responsible for the radio calls, but right after liftoff, he's not heard again for the rest of the flight. It's all American after that, and you'll hear it on the audible. But what's wild is none of the investigators, right after the flight disappeared, somehow can hear that, which I can hear very clearly. And I'm thinking, okay, this is just what you do on a clandestine job when you're doing covert work and you've stolen a jet and you don't want anyone to know. Even your investigators that you handpick to listen to the cockpit recordings are not going to say, well, yeah, it's clearly an Asian here. And then, so for all these years, people always play the, Malaysian 370, good night, Malaysian 370. That's not an Asian dude. That's an American that says that. That's the famous line that made everybody cry. But they're in their minds going, oh, it's the last call of the pilots. It's so sad. It's the co-pilot making that call. No, it's an American dude going, Malaysian 370, good night, Malaysian 370. You can hear the recordings on hush, but you can just get the recordings anywhere online. They're viral, right? The cockpit recordings of MH370 right after liftoff, the Asian pilot's voice disappears. So I say that because that's what kind of generated in me, like, all right, there is just stuff going on that is not on the level. There's just, because the American government, at that time with Obama saying, oh, we're going to help the Malaysians find this jet and this, that, and the other. And I knew, because it was an American pilot, on some level I thought that there is covert stuff happening here. And no one's going to say it. And if you're the covert government that does what I say occurs in the book, you're going to control everything to do with the post-disappearance media. And that's what happened.
Wow.
So you're going to kind of hide it in plain sight. You're going to say, oh, yeah, the radio calls, it's Farik Hamid, he clearly flew to 40 minutes in the flight. No, it's not. That's not an Asian dude anymore. He's so hardcore Asian in his voice on the first few calls from ground control and departure and getting their ATC clearance. You can hardly understand him. And then it's American dude, Malaysian 370. It's just like an American. You're like, okay, so why is no one bringing this up? Right.
Wow.
So I think Hush is doing well. It became an international bestseller pretty quickly because of, I'm just calling it like I see it. Like, I don't care whether you believe it or not, you can listen to the radio calls. And if you're not hearing an American on those radio calls, then fine, you don't have to hear it. But I can promise you, and I kind of define it for you in Hush, because I'll do the radio call first to let you know what they're saying. Because a lot of people, even when they hear a radio call like taxi 32 right, clear for takeoff, blah blah blah, they don't really even know what they're telling the pilot. So I'll say it slow first, but then you'll hear the actual radio call. And so it's pretty clear. You can, and and all of the released cockpit calls, all of the words are there. They name them. So you can look at the words as you're listening to the radio calls. Just realize when they're cleared for takeoff, 32 right, thank you, goodbye. That's Farik's last line. Thank you, goodbye. He's very Asian. You don't hear him again. And right after, when the very first call to departure is the CIA hijacker pilot, Benjamin R. Waters, who we've now identified. And he just says, departure Malaysian 370, like he stutters. He's not even used to saying Malaysian 370. So, and you'll hear him for the rest of the flight, including the famous Malaysian 3, good night, Malaysian 370. It's him. There's no other person speaking for the rest of the flight. And it's amazing that even to this day, there's not one voice expert, and I'm not even a voice expert, but any pilot is going to go, that's an American dude the whole way. That's
Yeah.
just an American dude. There's no, absolutely, in my military mind, there's nothing clearer than like, how can no one be bringing this up? Which then leads you on a trail, which is in hush, about what I'm pretty certain occurred with that flight, and it's a tragic story, but you can read about it if you're interested. And yeah, I have a lot of details that are hard to read, but nevertheless, I think it'll give some of the families that kind of understand, like, oh, if they can get to the point that, yeah, that is clearly not Farik Hamidi anymore making these radio calls, they can then go down the path of, okay, well, if what Selig is saying is right and the flight was taken, here's Selig's take on where it was taken. And so they at least they'll get some closure, at least some evidence that is hard evidence because of the radio calls that something definitely occurred with the flight. It was not a suicide mission, I will promise you. Not with either one of those good Asian pilots, beloved family members. There was no suicide mission for either one of them. That plane did not crash, I'll tell you that. It did not crash. It's still
Wow.
available in a hangar at Diego Garcia. I'll give you a hint before you read the book. It still sits gathering dust in a hangar. It's disassembled in a hangar on the southeast end of Diego Garcia.
Wow. Have any family
Yeah.
members contacted you?
No, and this is kind of interesting. You'll understand this, Boo, I think, on a lot of levels. So it's been, I think, 12 years now, 2008. I'm sorry, 2014. So 11 years, I think. March 8th was the anniversary. And if you go on, say, the MH370 group page, say on Facebook, there
Yeah.
is like 100 different dudes on there and chicks saying, I think this is what happened to the flight. It disappeared and then it hit the water. And then, this little piece of a wing that we show below water here, this is it. And it's here and it's there. And so all these people have these theories, and I get it. I mean, they're attempting to help. They want to solve it. I want to solve it. Everybody
Mm.
wants to solve it, right? But I'm not willing to put up something in something I'm going to write unless it is excessively researched and that I have a factual thing like those radio calls to say, I'm starting with a fact. My fact is that's not an Asian pilot for the rest of the flight. So now let's just start with that. If you can get on board with me with that, then the rest of my story will make absolute sense. There's an agenda why the flight was taken. The agenda is there in the story as well. Once you read the whole thing, you'll kind of go, oh, wow, there's a reason the CIA hijacked that flight. It had to do with technology that was on the flight. I'll just give you that much of a hint. But my point is that when you get on the MH370 group page, there's literally like all day long, 100 different people on there going, no, I know it. I know the flaperon came off near French Indonesia or whatever, they'll say. And then they'll be like, so it must have crashed in the ocean there. And then there'll be a whole string of people commenting on that. And that's been going on for 11 years. So when I posted like, hey, I just want you to know I've got a recording here that you can listen to. I put like a 3-minute recording on there of the voice calls. Now, I've only had like 2 people just basically debunk me, like, oh, look, this guy's just written a book to steal from the families. How disgraceful. I know for me, from my heart, I could never do that. I mean, I literally write once I knew clearly that it was a CIA hijacker and that I could then research into that vein and mine that vein, then I knew I had something that I could at least give the families to say, here's a starting point for you. You may not go for my entire trajectory of what I say happened to the jet all the way to the end of the story. I'm not concerned with whether you believe it or not, but if you can get on board that something occurred that wasn't natural for that jet, in other words, it wasn't a pilot suiciding the whole jet. It had nothing to do with the two pilots up front. This jet was taken, which makes sense because it's never been found. That's because it's in a hangar at the end of Diego Garcia. I'm just saying, with all of the radars, with all of our technology worldwide, a jet that size does not vanish.
Mm.
It's tracked. I'm just saying, covert events are controlled on the post side so that nobody finds out who's behind it. I can promise you the American CIA is behind the hijacking and what eventually occurs to the families, men, women, and children on that jet.
Wow.
Hence the helicopter flying over, boo boo.
What comes to mind, and I would love to hear your take on is
Yeah,
going back to Iraq. Is
sure.
you hear about the Tomb of Gilgamesh, the
Hmm.
Anunnaki and stargates. What
Right.
have you looked into all that?
So I am familiar that I was researching a story about someone named Dan Burish who worked at S4. So S4 is the super secret below ground facility at Papoose Lake in Area 51. That's where Bob Lazar worked on the sport model, et cetera, et cetera. So now you kind of know where that is. Dan Burish worked there, and one of his stories of he was tasked to help an ailing, so a sick alien, to see if they could help it come back to health. And Dan was I don't even what we call it, hypnopathist, or it's a person who can look at skin disease and allergies and allergens and help an individual who's ailing. So Dan's story is that at one point in time he was brought. I believe they went to Iraq because a big alien covert operation was occurring with a visitation of an alien race or something like that, and he is there with the sick alien, and pushes him through a Stargate. The alien supposedly told Dan, "Hey, I want to go home. Just push me through that Stargate." And according to Dan, it was just like two tall obelisks, kind of like rocks that are, let's just say they're 15 feet tall. He said it was just two rocks that were known to be a Stargate, and the alien was in a wheelchair, and he got close to it without anybody realizing what he was about to do. And the alien said, "If you just push me through, I'll vanish." And he just pushed the wheelchair, according to Dan Burish. And the alien went through a Stargate and was able to return home. So that's what I know about, this one little incident supposedly that occurred in Iraq. But my research tells me there are Stargates around the planet at various points on the planet. From all these accounts I've read of where people see beings come out of the Stargate or enter the Stargate, and including online interviews of like that JP character that I told you. You can look up JP online. Just type in JP and alien, and he'll pop up. He's just unmasked himself recently, but he has some amazing stories of being involved on military operations where Stargates are involved, and where portals are involved, and where he travels to different planets to do missions, and his little unit goes through basically a Stargate or a portal to another planet, and it's an instantaneous thing. And he says you go through, and then all of a sudden you're kind of blurry for a second, but then you can't breathe because you're on a different planet's atmosphere, like Mars, and it's a little bit harder to breathe. You can still breathe on Mars without a mask, but it's harder because of the content of the oxygen makeup there is a little bit less. But there's just all kinds of stories like that. So I'm assuming, yeah, Iraq has all kinds of, I mean, it's such an old country that there's obviously a lot of history there.
And of course, Mesopotamia was in that area.
Hmm.
The Anunnaki, what's your take on them? Were they other types of beings, or
I have not done heavy work on the Anunnaki. My Reader's Digest version is that group did not have our best interests in mind. They were, from what I understand, large beings, so like 12 to 20 feet tall, and were kind of considered kings. I believe they were an alien offshoot, like some kind of hybrid. Um, And that's really all I know because I mean, when I pick a subject like Roswell or something like that, I do such heavy research, and at some point, there's just so much alien stuff to study, right? Like, you have to kind of focus if you want to really understand any given thing. I mean, I'm sure you could spend a lifetime just on the Anunnaki. There's enough volumes of information of people talking about them and writing about them, but there's also just our own secret space program. I mean, you could write a lifetime worth of stuff on the secret space program, and all the individuals who are now having this mind wipe technology is glitching now, and they're getting memories of working in space
Hmm.
for 20 years of their life. And it's just like, what? And so I'm just saying, in the alien realm, you kind of have to pick a vein and research that for a long time to kind of get a grip on it, and then you can maybe move on to abductions or something. Like, there's 20 years of abductions and reports and videotapes of abductions, like with John Mack, where he's videotaping his clients going through their regression, and they're violently being tortured by gray aliens, right?
Wow.
In the regression. And it's horrific to watch, but they're online. You can go to YouTube and type in John Mack. He was a Harvard psychologist, I believe, back in the day, and he wrote tons of books. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, and he wrote. He basically came out and said, "Here's uh, sessions from 20 different clients going through hypnotic regression to remember their alien encounters, their alien abductions, their alien torture." And it's horrific to watch him, but you can tell the people laying on his couch, they are not lying. Like, they are screaming, and they are in pain, and sometimes their eyes are closed, sometimes their eyes are open, and he's just sitting off to the side, and it's rough to watch it. But after a while, if you watch enough of them, not just men and women, but just, I mean, you kind of get a sense like, wow, you just can't fake this. And for him to have these clients from all over the world, he made people write in to say, why do you want to come to me? Because there were so many people that wanted to come seeing because of here's the helicopter again. If I blow up all of a sudden, you'll know. But anyway, it's fascinating with any realm of the alien presence. If you want to study abductions or hypnotic regression or secret space program, or what is just our country right now doing with alien technology, and every country, because all countries, if they can be, they're in cahoots with alien races who are providing them technology for certain things. And what country doesn't want to have the latest technology, right? So
Yeah.
there's a vast world out there to get into if you're interested in, are we in cahoots with alien races? There's a lot of information for you to have fun with.
Hmm. How would you define the deep state?
That's a great question. So my impression now is it's not any government. It's not the American government. It's not the Canadian. It's not the French. It's not the Germans. So I call the deep state the cabal. And the reason I say that is because it's not the deep state of America per se. When I talk about the cabal, I'm talking about a group of individuals who I most firmly believe are alien hybrids. And the reason I say that is they have controlled the planet since before Roswell. They have controlled humanity by manipulating world events. They're able to do that because they are hybrids. In other words, my claim is you've got Draco reptilians here who are a excessively brilliant ancient race of planet honkering hordes. I mean, they're just uh, if somebody doesn't have a visual on a Draco reptilian, it's essentially, imagine a lizard that's 8 foot tall and muscular and telepathic and brilliant
Wow.
and known, and all the way up to 35 feet tall, supposedly. Now, this is from secret space personnel like Rebecca Rose, who have been in the secret space program working for the reptilians, who are like, they are gnarly, But what they're known for, they're kind of the mafia of the multiverse. Like, they are the most feared race out there because they conquer worlds, and they do it with a velvet takeover. And the way they do it is exactly what's occurring on the planet right now. So they're able to make all of us humans believe there's no such thing as aliens. Meanwhile, they're infiltrating us as humanity and controlling us through a few individuals within our government that get paid well to keep their mouths shut, but are told how to adjust things. So it's not the American government, because the American government revolves every 4 years, right? It's a different president. It's senators and House members can be only in for 2 years. So they're never going to tell the cabal is never going to inform anyone in our government who's new into the government about what's really going on. There's no incentive for them to do that because those people are going to disappear after 2 years. So why tell them? They're not going to influence anybody 2 years from now when they're out of office. So they pick individuals within the government and within all of our strata, media, big pharma, banks. They can take over, they can hybridize, they can literally they could make my soul disappear and reanimate me. You're still going to think it's MD Selig. You're still going to think I'm a writer, but now I've got an alien agenda. You're not
Wow.
going to know it. That's the technology that I'm talking about. Is just think about it. If they can come here from anywhere else in intergalactic space, and they were here before we got here, do you think they have the technology to reanimate a human body and make it appear like it's Michael Selig saying our country should do this? Yeah, they have that technology.
Mm.
And much beyond it. And all I'm saying is that's who I believe is behind everything that's occurring. And if you're focusing on congressional hearings to figure out what's really going on, your focus is just a big level below where it's really occurring. The congressional hearings, it's what I call a limited hangout. You're just not going to get anything substantial. Just remember, those individuals that you're hearing at the congressional level, they'll be gone in 2 more years. And it'll be another set. And no one's telling those individuals anything. I mean, you might hear about a UAP once in a while, but when you start to do your homework of research, you start to realize, oh my God, there's aliens everywhere, all around us, in the planet, above the planet, around the solar system. There's volumes of information to kind of, from contactees, from people in the secret space programs that have been out in space working for the Draco, working for the Nazis that are in space, working for the American Air Force and Navy secret space programs, mind wiped when they're brought back. And sometimes the mind wipe technology is glitching because humans are amazing and the technology doesn't always work. Hence, you have all these secret space program people stepping forward going, I was in a program for 20 years on such and so planet. And then once you start hearing enough of the different people from all over the world who were in the secret space programs, you realize, oh my God, there's just an entire realm happening around me. That's been the hardest thing for me, is to realize, wow, I've just been completely hoodwinked my entire
Mm.
life. I didn't believe any of it, right? So,
Wow. I don't hold on to labels. You see all these people fighting right now, the Democrats and the Republicans.
mhm.
And I just care about humanity as a whole. And I see a lot of nonsense because I could see clearly, at least my intuition could see that it's controlled by some hidden hand far beyond my comprehension. But it's controlled by, and these people are just being we're being fed all this fear. I mean, even on our current president, I could hear everything that comes out of his mouth is fear, pointing
Yeah.
against the opposite opponent, the us against them mentality, and it's all like it keeps us in a lower frequency, and we're easily able to be controlled. When we're in fear. Um, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you believe both parties are controlled by the same people, the same beings?
Yeah. So you actually said it really good, Boo Boo, when you said, I'm saying that right. It's Boo Boo. It seems like to me there's entities above our government, and that's exactly what it is. So forget CNN, forget looking at the American government, forget looking at the British Parliament, forget all of that. Imagine a small group of excessively wealthy individuals who are also now hybrids, and they may not even be aware they're a hybrid. So the head of big pharma in the world, the head of the biggest media moguls, the people who control what you're seeing, think of a very small group at the top level, and most likely they're reptilian. So
Wow.
it's a race, it's an alien race that is far more brilliant than us. They have done this on hundreds of worlds throughout the multiverse. They have taken over entire worlds. And people say, well, why would they want to just, you'll get the question of why, well, if they want to take us over, if they're that technologically advanced, why wouldn't they just kill us all? That's not their agenda. Humans are, to give you a Reader's Digest version, we're considered royalty in the multiverse because of love, because of what we're about to be. When we explode into what we're about to be, which is happening now, our capabilities are far beyond because of love. If it seems so kind of like not enough to say it's just love, but love is what drives it all. It's what drives everything. And a lot of alien races, like the Draco reptilians, they don't even know what love is. They're AI created entities, right? So as the planet is now blooming, and roughly by 2027, all my research says roughly by 2027. I'm not saying 2027 January 1st. I'm not saying the end of 2027. I'm saying roughly around 2027. Significant events are going to occur here on this planet for all of us. And it's going to lead to an exceptionally bright future for us, but it's going to get a little bit messier before that occurs. And I'm only saying all this to answer your question of who is this? What is, do you believe all the stuff between the Democrats and the Republicans? And all I'm trying to say for your answer is look much higher. Forget your own government. They have nothing to do with your future. What is occurring with your government that's on CNN is a completely controlled, let's make humans get all wrapped up in nothing, which will keep them from exploding into who they are. That's all it is. It's just what we call limited hangout. You're never going to hear uh, about your actual reality around you from what you're going to get on TV. What you can do is, like you're doing, Boo Boo, go deeper here, go inside.
Yeah.
Use your heart to discern what's occurring around you. Get away from media for a while. Come back to you, go inside, see what you are as love. And what you'll find very quickly, if you can just get quiet for a few minutes a day, something you do consistently, get away from all technology, go inside.
You know,
The magic that occurs there is the grand prize, and you already have it. It's just a function you have to remember to access it.
I love that. I had a lady on who stood on stage with Biden and Harris and all them,
Mhm.
and I asked her because there's one thing from me talking to someone else about, are they controlled by the same group of people? But she was standing on stage, and she could see behind the scenes, and she said the same thing. Yeah, they're controlled by the same people. Who are those people? She doesn't know, but that was pretty interesting to have her being on stage with them and saying the same thing, similar to what you
Yeah,
said too.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It just I look at I'm writing a book on addiction right now, and
Mm.
I see the Rockefellers. They had their hands in Alcoholics Anonymous from the very beginning, and I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober for a long time, but I'm like,
Congratulations, that's
yeah,
awesome.
thank you. But
That's a
I'm
big
like,
deal, a very big deal.
I started to see this recovery matrix with a lot of money behind it too, and the Rockefellers had their hand in this thing from the very beginning, and how, like, people no one's really getting better, they get stuck in this lower frequency. It's even fear-based, a lot of fear, and I love the 12-step program, don't get me wrong, I'm not, but there's also another side of it no one's really seen, and we're being in a lower frequency. If you look at that David Hawkins map of consciousness, we get stuck in this hive mentality, which is all fear-based, and it's like everywhere who were these Rockefellers and, like, the Rothschilds and the Carnegies? Like, who are these guys? How did they it seemed like everything they touched were it's all about money, power, and corruption to benefit
Mhm.
themselves, not humanity.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the power and control cycle for, when people get a taste of that, it can be very addictive as well, and I think you're onto it where you took a look at even the 12-step program and you go, okay, how is it that the Rockefellers are involved? Well, they're involved because of money. If you want to take it to a current level, you could say, okay, let's take Alzheimer's as an example. All of the drugs that are available for Alzheimer's is where big pharma makes a lot of their money, right? So they're going to tell you, oh, this will cure your mom, your dad, your grandma, will cure you, but it's not. But the money that's made off of those cures is huge money. So again, it's like the forces that we're dealing with to control the planet. It's very, I'll just say from my standpoint, it's confusing on one level because it's so complex, but on another level, it's not. It has to be an alien presence that is doing this so well for so long. They're years in advance of where humans kind of move, given a given input. The output of what humans will do with that input is so well known by this group that they can just play both sides of the coin. Just like with disclosure, they'll say, "Oh, let's give them a little taste of maybe someone's going to talk a little bit about a UAP from, say, a congressman," and they'll get all excited, and a year later they'll say, "Well, what happened to that congressperson that was talking about the UAP?" And they just kind of vanished because this cabal can play both sides and just keep humanity in a constant spin of nothing. There's nothing going on because what they want to do is keep you from going inside. They want to keep you from becoming this multidimensional, expansive love being that you already are, that has been controlled and kept down for so long, for generations. They fear you becoming what you are because they can't, for instance, the Draco reptilians cannot literally live on the planet if we explode into who we are as love. They can't stay on the frequency of this planet. They have to depart the planet, and that's what's occurring. They're on the run right now. That's why I'm saying the next 2 years might get a little rough, but we're literally overall frequency of love of who we are is rising so rapidly that the Draco reptilians are literally on the run now. The cabal is on the run, and they're doing everything they can to hold final power to try to flip it, but it's not going to work because love is it's unstoppable.
Have they been fighting amongst each other within themselves, do you believe?
That's a really good question. I don't know is the correct answer for me, at least, because there's no way to research them, right? But
Yeah.
I'm assuming what I do know about them is that they're telepathic, so it's not like they sit around and talk. It's all instantaneous. They're at that level of, and one day we'll get there as well. There are a lot of humans that have telepathic capabilities that are able to, have what you could say is a conversation with a alien being, whether it's Nordic or reptilian or whatever. But I think at some point humanity will far exceed all of these malevolent races that are currently trying to control the planet.
You know, you hear a lot about, galactic historians. What's your take on people that call themselves galactic historians? I mean, like anything else, I think people. I'm not saying there's no such thing. Maybe I'm sure there are some people that really know
Mhm.
stuff, but it all also could become trendy, and the need for fame, and these people start taking off and making up stuff. I'm still a healthy skeptic in many ways as well.
Yeah, I think with any of that type of stuff where I don't have, there's no concise answer to say what is a galactic historian, right? But I will say, if you're listening to somebody or you're reading somebody who claims to be a galactic historian, if you're discerning from your heart as you're listening to them, if you're just listening with your heart, you're going to know instantaneously like this
Mm.
person is authentic or not, or maybe they seem authentic, but it feels sketchy. Your heart. I've learned to as much as I can switch this because I was always like, oh, this is the thing. If I think about things enough, I'll have it. And I've learned time and time again, the head needs to be the decoder of the ultimate wisdom, which is you in your heart, right? That's where you have by far the biggest power. And just let your brain be the decoder of what the heart is saying. Let your heart lead whenever you're doing research, whenever you're listening to somebody on a podcast. You know, if you listen and lead, if you try to start leading your life with your heart, it my experience is it changes you molecularly. You start having different interactions even in public where you're just shocked because you're trying to lead with your heart, and what your brain would say is, "Oh, they're judging me," or this, that, and the other. Pretty soon you realize, "Oh, that person wasn't judging me. They were actually just being sweet
Mhm.
because I'm leading with my heart now." So
I love that.
your entire path suddenly just it's I don't know. It's like I'm not saying it's all perfect. You're still going to have disastrous days, but when you lead with your heart, you're kind of grateful because you realize on my most disastrous days, that's where I learn about myself as love and I expand as love more than on days where everything just goes perfect, right? It's the disastrous days where somebody hates on me or I think they're hating on me or this, that, and the other, where I'm having to really go, wait, who am I as love? Can I love myself today? Those are the days where you grow, right? You have your vertical learning curve and you grow as love. And
Mhm.
that to me, that kind of solves it all. Like if you can hold on to, all right, am I growing today from the heart? Am I trying to lead from the heart? It's awesome. It just changes everything.
And you see that in religion. I mean, y in the story of Jesus is to go within, you know, God is love, to
Hmm.
go within yourself, especially with the Gnostic text, it's all about
Sure.
self-realization.
Hmm.
But then the church is telling you to go outwardly. Go outwardly. Look at and if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're not on the right
Right.
path anymore. You gotta look outwardly for someone else to save you.
Right. So that may be the cabal agenda to have you hear those words and make you again fear that you are not everything and you are everything from a standpoint of love. You are beyond you're beyond all religions, you're kind of as love, as all of us are love, you're pristine at every level, and what it is just remembering that about yourself, and the way you remember that is you get quiet each day, you pick your time, 5 minutes in the morning, you turn off your technology, you go, "I'm just gonna light a little sage, I'm just gonna get quiet and see what happens," and sometimes 5 minutes is just 5 minutes of monkey mind where you're thinking about work and everything else, but you're gonna have moments that are gonna start to occur where you just have a little window of, "Ah, what was that?" And then you
Mm.
realize, "Oh, that was just me as love without thought. I wasn't in my head, I was here." And when that starts to happen, you want it more. Talk about an addiction. When you start to sense yourself as love, as what you are, you're never so content and you want more of it. And so you start showing up more, and then 5 minutes becomes an hour. And on another day, maybe 3 hours because it's so much coming home.
Wow. It's going back to what I kind of sound repetitive, but we've been fed fear. We're not good enough. We're sinners.
Mhm.
We're just
Mhm.
alcoholics. We're addicts. We're
Right.
this. We're that. And everywhere you go, it's stress, and it's like it moves us away from that our wholeness, our oneness,
Mhm.
and our and love. It's all fear based,
Mhm.
and I think yeah, it's a perfectly designed system to keep people in a very low frequency where they can be controlled. It just it makes no sense to me to see all this fighting going on with people and the hatred and the racism and just it just sometimes I sit back and I have tears because I could feel I could feel people's energies and yeah, just I just wish people could just take a step back and just like exactly what you said, and go back to that love within ourselves.
You know what's great? I mean, this is gonna be opposite to what you said, but what you experience when you get upset that people are fighting and they're just being mean and aggressive to each other and you're, like, kinda sick of it. You're like, "I wish they'd just take a step back." The fact that you're bringing that up on your show tells you how powerful love is and that we're blooming into who we are because guess who's driving that feeling you had? Love. You as
Mm,
love is driving you to even bring it up on your show to go, God, if people could get back to themselves, take a step back and go inside and see who they are as love, this fighting that we're doing, that we've been kind of worked into to where we're fighting each other, wouldn't exist. Well, guess what? It's happening. You're talking about it on your show, boo boo. It's
mm,
like, that's what I mean by like, it's happening right now. You're part
mm,
of it. You're bringing it, right? And even if you're saying, I don't want to see any more fighting, I don't want to see more, love is driving that,
mm.
right? Because if you're not saying it, no one's thinking about love. If you're not saying, oh, if you're just saying everything's perfect, blah, 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 well, why would we want to go inside? But
Mm,
because you're saying it, your listeners are going, God, he's right. I get mad at just hearing the politicians and all the BS that goes on in the media. It's just people hating on each other, right? What does it make you do? Fascinating. It makes us go, I'm going to switch that thing off and I'm going to switch this thing on and I'm going to see what's really here because that out there ain't working anymore. And guess what? The big transition is now occurring and it's occurring because they picked the wrong target. They picked us. They messed with the wrong folks. That they
mm.
picked the wrong planet because humanity is rising and we're unstoppable because of love.
I love that. Studying like I'm sure you researched propaganda and how it's being used in our society amongst each other. Um, what can you talk about on how we're being easily lied to and how propaganda works? For me, I realized once the collective became aware of propaganda, they started to use propaganda against propaganda to create more propaganda. There's so many layers of it, and they're so ahead of us in thought and how this works. It's like it just there's layers and layers of it. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, so I'm not going to say there's any correct answer. What I'm going to say about propaganda is this. You're at a certain age now. How many years ago did you decide that there might be aliens? How long ago
Hmm.
was it?
I think I kind of came into this world to be honest like that. That's one thing
Okay,
I've
you
been
did.
fascinated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's good because a lot of people like me, I I did not believe there were any aliens on the planet at all
Hmm.
till maybe I started doing the research on Roswell. But that was, I was in my 30s. I was fully convinced from all the propaganda because they play both sides that there's no such thing as aliens and that if you thought there were aliens, somebody would just tell you you're absolutely nuts and then you didn't want to say that because you didn't want to be considered nuts and it was all about ego and you wanted to be considered normal amongst your friends, so you kept your mouth shut even if you had a premonition. So you just eventually just told yourself, okay, well, maybe there's not aliens. That's how good they are at playing both sides to where you don't even want to say it, right? And still
Hmm.
to this day, every time I go on a show and and I say it's the Draco reptilians that are here and have been controlling us, you're going to have, a bunch of folks who are scientists and PhDs and this, that, and the other saying what he's talking about is not feasible. And they're exactly right. In human primitive physics, the TR-3B is it's not feasible. There can't be a nuclear reactor on a ship that creates a gravity bubble. However, that doesn't mean that technology is not in the multiverse, is not here on the planet. Just because we don't understand how it works doesn't mean that it's not here. That's what I'm saying. And I try to give people a simple example. If you took your iPhone right now and went back to Tesla in 1899 and said, here's a product, here's a piece of technology, and I'm going to give one to you and one to your friend, and she's going to walk, 200 meters away, and you're going to be able to see her on video and talk to her. Tesla's considered pretty smart, right? Is going to say to you in 1899, that's not possible. No, this is not going to work. And then she walks away, and all of a sudden she pops up on his video screen, and he's like, oh my God, okay, so it does work, but he doesn't know how it works. He just knows it works. Now, that's only 100 years, boo-boo. 100 years ago, if I take an iPhone, just imagine, only 100 years ago, you're giving it to Tesla, and he's going to go, this cannot work, and then it works. So he doesn't understand how it works, but you can damn well bet at that point he's going to want to try to reverse engineer it because he's going to go, I want to know how it works now, right? So same with us in 1940 when we have alien saucers crash land around our only nuclear base at Roswell. Now Lockheed Martin has basically an iPhone in front of them from an advanced civilization 10,000 years or maybe 1,000,000 years older than us, who has just dropped some technology in our lap. We know it works. We know it flew here silently at over Mach speeds and most likely warp time and space to even get here. We don't know how it works, but we know it works, right? Lockheed Martin knows it works. So what do they start doing? Via the cabal, the reptilians who want to control humanity and the planet. Look, we'll let you work on this. We have some things we want, and you can read about kind of the darker side of all of this in Hush if you want to read kind of my version of how we got to where we are. But I'll just tell you that we have had technology in process of reverse engineering sometimes in excess of 70 years, and not one thing has occurred with it. Like, it's so advanced. To give you an idea, alien ships are known to be molecularly alive. They are literally called living conveyances. Our airplanes that we fly in aren't alive, but alien ships, they can put their hand impressions in their ships, and they are brainwave connected to their ship. Like a horse that's alive, they're connected to their ship. They can think a thought, and the ship is already in that motion as they're thinking the thought. We don't have that technology yet. That doesn't mean that it's not being used throughout the multiverse every day, throughout the day, on planets everywhere. I'm just saying that, remember the cell phone thing. If we only go back 100 years, we're giving Tesla an iPhone. He's like, this is not going to work. No way. And then it works. And then he goes, wow, I'm talking to her way over there. That's just not possible. But he's watching it and he's going, okay, I want this. That's what's occurred in our alien transactions going on with humanity, where the aliens have an agenda of things they want from humanity. They don't want to kill us. They need us. I won't go into why because it's so complicated, but it is in the book. But it all makes sense. It kind of really simple way. They have a certain agenda, and for them to get their agenda, they need to work with humanity. What do they give us to get their agenda? They give us technology. That's what's been going on for probably about 100 years now. We have been in cahoots with a malevolent alien race that's willing to break the prime directive to get what they want. In exchange, we get a little technology, and we've been trying to reverse engineer it. And in some cases, we're a little bit successful, say with the TR-3B. We get an aircraft that's actually an anti-gravity ship. It's not a living conveyance. It's not controlled by brainwave connections with an American pilot. But we have a ship that can travel to and from the moon almost instantaneously. And we've had it for many years now. And now we're working on fleet number 2, the TR-3C, right? So we're still eons behind the technology that can arrive here as they do whenever they want. That doesn't mean that technology doesn't exist. It's there. We just don't know how it works. We just know that it does work. And so that's what's been occurring. And just getting back to your question of, how is all this going on? And that, kind of your question is, how is it that they've been able to manipulate us with propaganda? Even as I say this, for all the people who don't have time to do the research, I will say, 50% of your audience is going to go, he's totally a lunatic. There's no aliens. There's no ships. There's none of this. And I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter to me what people believe or don't believe. I'm only telling you what I've done with research, and my experience of what's coming for the planet is excessively researched. And I'm just going to, I have to tell you, like, this is what I see coming. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. You'll get to find out.
Yeah, thank you. You know what came to my mind when you were talking, it was the movie Avatar, how they could put their
Mhm.
consciousness basically in other shells. Same thing, similar with the craft. They can put their consciousness in this craft. I don't know, but maybe that's how we're being visited. They're putting their consciousness in our bodies, and we don't even
Hmm.
know it. You know,
That's what I
for the
mean by
sake of
having you could have a reptilian agenda and not even know it. Like, their technology is that good, right? So we've only been on the planet for what, uh, let's say, a million years. Let's just say wherever the first fossils were found, but that's not even a full human at that point, right? And I'm just saying that as actively involved in what you could say technology only for really about 200 years. I mean, the Industrial Revolution, all that, we're 200 years into understanding physics, and we're dealing with races that are millions of years old, that travel intergalactically, that are so far beyond us in working in multidimensional levels, and can appear to us but not, and can disappear to us, like the Draco reptilians reside in the lower fourth density. We reside in the third density. So I can see you, but I can't see a Draco reptilian, but they can appear to us in the third density if they want to. Same with a Nordic, can step out of a ship. They work in the seventh density. But we as humans, very soon, will be able to work in all densities. This is what I mean by we are considered royalty out in the multiverse. Like, humans are about to step forward. And that's why all of this is occurring right now, because the planet is literally in a blooming stage with energy and love coming. We as humans are blooming, hence all the chaos on the media and everything, because it's the last grip of the Draco, the Maitra, the Greys, trying to hold on to what they can to keep humanity down, and it's just not working. They're literally on the run, but you're seeing the final stage before we step into who we are. It's a great future coming soon.
appreciate that. Can you explain what the multiverse is? For some listeners that may not be familiar with the term.
I'll try to. I'll try to make a visual of it. So let's just pretend that our universe, now I'm not saying it's flat, but just for the sake of a visual, let's say our universe is a gigantic flat ocean that just keeps extending. There's no ends to any edge of it. Okay, it's just a flat, massive ocean, infinitely expanding in all directions. Now, take that flat plane and create a ball of the same universe, but enough of them to create an entire, like a globe of universes that are all expanding outward. That's the multiverse. So there's
Mhm.
not just our universe, but there are individuals who, literally species, races, that work in the multiverse. We are intermixed. It's a much more complex thing than just, I mean, our universe is complex enough, but enough secret space program personnel, enough contactees, enough um, abductees talk about, uh, everyone out there talks about the multiverse. So we absolutely know that it's not just a universe, that that dimensional travel is possible between universes. So it's called a multiverse because there are beings that work not just in our universe, but in other universes. And they don't have to be gigantic. They can be the fractal size of a diamond, but yet if you're in it, it feels just as expansive as ours. Time, space, physicality have no meaning in the multiverse. Like
Mm.
aliens always talk about there is no per se timeline. It's a matrix. You're just the time is kind of it's a human term, and there are timelines, but I'm just saying that time, it, from what every bit of my research from the alien races to talk about it, like you guys, you humans right now are still stuck on time, like a linear thing. Like you're going to be this, but that's not the way time works. It's a matrix. It's not a line.
Mm. So
And
with all
very hard
this,
to explain. Very hard to explain visually, but from the multiverse, your question of the multiverse is just imagine if our universe is a flat ocean expanding outwards forever. Now create a globe around that flat universe, and every part of the globe is different universes all combining together. That would be the multiverse.
I love that. Yeah, thanks.
Hmm.
I'm gonna ask you a couple more quick questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
Admiral Byrd. You hear about the stories of some of the books written by him. Um, how true is that story in Antarctica?
Completely true. So I won't give away too much. You can read about it in the book, but I cover Operation High Jump excessively and his experience of being attacked by flying saucers when he was about to attack the German base below the ice shelf in Antarctica in February of 1947, if I'm recalling correctly this moment. I'm sorry, is that right? 1947? Yeah, 1947. He was basically turned back from attacking the Nazi base 211 under the ice shelf because his job was to go down there and kick out the Nazis from below the ice shelf and bring them back for prosecution in America. And he was literally his massively armed flotilla, which was not a scientific expedition to Antarctica to study nature. That was what Truman wanted the public to know. What they wanted was they had some sense that the Germans were building something below the ice shelf. What they didn't know was that the Germans were in cahoots with the Draco reptilians at that time, who were giving them technology in exchange for Germans. I won't tell you what the Germans were used for, but it's not good. But the Draco reptilians were giving them anti-gravity technology. That anti-gravity and technology that the Nazis had was employed against Byrd's flotilla when it arrived outside the the Antarctic ice shelf. His flotilla was attacked, and literally they turned tail after losing 30 fighters that were protecting the fleet in the first 10 minutes because their anti-gravity ships are shooting out of the ocean at terrific velocities, and they're our F4U Corsair fighters are no match. The 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 saucers are using particle beam weapons like lasers on F4U Corsair fighters. That's not a fair fight. All 30 fighters from my research were downed, sent flaming into the ocean within 10 minutes, all 30 of them. A destroyer was sunk with laser technology. Byrd then turned his fleet around and headed back to New York. On his way, you get to read the interview of the Argentinian guy who interviewed him, where he
Mm.
said, there are technologies now for ships to go from one pole to another. That's what Byrd says in his
Wow.
interview with the Argentinian guy, and then when America, like Truman and Forrestal, got wind of that interview, it was basically quashed. But Byrd gives that interview, I believe it was to an Argentinian reporter, and he says, there is stuff out there where ships can go from one pole to another through the earth. And he wasn't lying. He was
Wow.
trying to warn the world there is anti-gravity technology on the planet. There are flying saucers in 1947 that just decimated my fleet, but he couldn't say it out loud. And then when he got back, he got a severe scolding from Forrestal, like, bury this, never talk about it. It was a scientific expedition. If you ever say a word about it, it's going to end badly for you. So he shut his mouth about it. But that's what actually occurred on Operation High Jump.
Mm. The Majestic 12. I know Trump's uncle, John G. Trump, was one of the guys that walked into Tesla's room. And one of the guys that he was with was one of the original members of the Majestic 12. What can you tell us about that, if you don't mind?
Sure. So the Majestic 12 was set up by Truman, and he had James Forrestal set up the Majestic 12 because they were so freaked out about the alien visitations and probing of Roswell, because Roswell was our only nuclear base in 1947. We had detonated the bomb 2 years earlier, the Trinity test of 1945. I believe it was July 16th, 1945. If I'm mistaken, it would be August 16th. But anyway, I'm within a month. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So 1945, we detonate the Trinity blast, Oppenheimer does, and we're sending shockwaves through the multiverse. A lot of alien races are suddenly turning, going, what have the humans got? They've got a firecracker they don't know what they're doing with. It's bigger than they even know what they're handling. Let's go investigate. So suddenly we have all these alien ships from 1945. We had alien ships prior to that, significant alien visitation prior. But after Roswell, suddenly the Earth is a very interesting place for other races who are wanting to know what in the hell are the primitive humans doing with a nuclear weapon already. We weren't supposed to evolve this quickly. So long story short, we are suddenly probed by all of these alien races, and they're all over Roswell, the town of Roswell. There's there's volumes of information of the citizens in the town of Roswell seeing these silent ships doing mock maneuvers and square turns and stuff that is not feasible, not possible, right? Again, it's that cell phone theory. This is not possible, but they're watching it happen, right? They even try to tell the soldiers on the base. There's documentation of a couple of nuns trying to tell the soldiers on the base, like, we've got these little discs flying all around a hospital. The soldiers are like, no, ma'am, that's really not occurring. They could be Russian reconnaissance. We don't know what they are, but what was happening was Truman is getting real-time information of this alien visitation of all these different alien ships probing with electromagnetic pulses, all of the Roswell base, which is where the Enola Gay is, which is where our only nuclear weapons on the planet are. Just think about that.
Mm.
America has the only nuclear weapons in 1947 at Roswell. Makes you wonder why that would become a significant event when
Mm.
alien ships are seen all over. Nobody wants to admit it because Truman said, all right, I'm going to send my bigs there. Eisenhower, Oppenheimer, I'm going to send everybody who's got an eye for it. We're not going to let the public know that I'm sending all the bigs there. We're going to keep this totally buried, but I want you guys. So Truman stays in the White House, but says he sends everybody, Curtis LeMay, General LeMay, all of these bigs, to go to
Mm.
Roswell and go find out what the hell the aliens want. What is happening? Why are they here? Right? So you have a situation where Truman does not want the public to think that America is not in control of the skies above them. That would cause chaos. And he's just come out of the Great Depression. He's the president that says the world's going to calm down now. The Great Depression is over. I got this. We're fine. You guys are going to be fine, right? because the world's been in chaos. And now the Great Depression is over. Truman's got the handhold, and he doesn't want to lose it again. He doesn't want to lose it for all of us. He wants it to be steady. He wants America to be solid, right? But it's not. So what do you do when it's not? So what do you do when you're not in control of your own skies? You're going to let the public know about it? Hey, we've got aliens that are coming. We have no idea what they are. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to quash it at every level. And if anyone sees alien ships and you've given them stern warnings and they don't listen, you terminate them. End of story. You're not going to let that story get out. And that's what happens at Roswell. But before it happens, Truman says, all right, James Forrestal, I want a group of 6 military guys and 6 scientists. We're going to call it the Majestic 12. It's a completely unknown, secret, forever group, not to be known to the public at all. And that group is going to tell me, Harry Truman, what the hell is happening with this alien presence. That's how the Majestic 12 got started. It's had many members through the years because they get old and die. It is a powerful group. Now it's, the last count I heard is like, it's up to like 44, but I can tell you this, the Majestic 12 is a group that perhaps handed out some contracts like to Lockheed Martin for reverse engineering things. So it's a group that was privy to all of the alien crashes. That's all via the Majestic 12. That's all documented. And of course, every debunker out there says the Majestic 12 is not a real thing. I can assure you it's a real thing, or it was a real thing. It's now amalgamated into a completely different animal. But the cabal, again, above even the Majestic 12. So there's the American government. Above that is the Majestic 12, where Truman doesn't even want you to know this group exists. It's just to analyze what do the aliens want. That group began signing contracts with the Draco reptilians as the Nazis had done in 1938, 10 years before. Because why? We want technology. We're looking at these alien crash ships that have crash landed at Roswell, and we're like, okay, who brought it? Let's meet those people. Turns out it's Draco reptilians, it's Greys. Let's get into some contractual obligations because we want that technology. What do we got to give for it? We have to give certain things. I won't go into that. It's dark. But I will say that the Majestic 12 was founded Forrestal essentially signs the document that says this is a group that's now going to be started. And I believe Hillenkotter was the first Maj 1, which is the head of the Majestic 12. Colonel or Admiral Hillenkotter was the first, but who really changed everything, and I think he's your first actual reptilian now that I've studied him enough, is Alan Dulles. Eventually becomes Maj 1. And him with James Angleton at the helms at the CIA. This is where the CIA basically goes rogue. They are created in 1947 at the same time the Majestic 12 was created.
Wow.
So the CIA starts in 1947.
So when you say he was our first reptilian, what do you mean by that?
Because all my research points to the stuff that he was doing back then with James Angleton. It was beyond human strategy. What he was doing to control humanity, like those two were responsible for Kennedy's death. Like they assassinated Kennedy. And people will say, oh, Selig's nuts. I don't care. I can promise you. Alan Dulles and James Angleton planned the killing. James Angleton was on a particular building in Dallas right above, and it had nothing to do with Lee Harvey Oswald. He was just a fall guy. All of that was planned in advance, and the way it was planned, all I can say is there had to be alien control and strategy. It was beyond, the way they did it was so perfect. It was beyond kind of planning it with just a human brain. All I can say is, the best I can tell, Alan Dulles is your first official cabal hybrid. It was a full reptilian agenda, him and James Angleton.
Hmm.
are your first ones who are like, it had nothing to do with America. It's above the American government. It's above, they control everything. And hence the CIA becomes who they are, which to this day are the ones who do all the dirty work for the cabal. The CIA is your cabal run. They provide all the spies, the assassins, anything the cabal wants. This very small group at the top, the CIA does all of their dirty work, including the Malaysian hijacking.
How about the current?
CIA controls Diego Garcia. The CIA controls a lot of the current mind control of what's projected to humans. It's physically done by the CIA.
Well, yeah, thank you. I look forward to reading your book and having you back. I would love to ask you more questions about your book when I read it.
Anytime, Boo Boo.
Yeah.
It's been great to hang out. You asked really great questions, so it's been super fun. And I wish you the best up on your mountain there. You know, you're stick to your gut. You've got a cool thing happening. So you know, stay inside and see what happens. And the next time we talk, maybe you'll have some more information.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Do you have any final words you would like to talk about your book that you didn't to the listener?
They can find all the links at mdselig.com. There's links to the book and other pages where they can find fun facts about some of my research and just I wanted to say really it's been my honor to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you. My friend Suzanne Olsen wrote a book called Jesus in Kashmir years ago. And but in her book she says something like, in 1,000 years from now, God bless you might be replaced with may the force be with you. So may the force be with you.
and the force, it might just be love. So I'm all all in. Mm-hmm.
Well, take care. Thanks again. Namaste.
Thank you so much. All right, Boo Boo. All right. Bye-bye.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on a day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.